Robert Redford was one of the greatest names in modern Hollywood. The 89-year-old actor died early this morning at his home in Utah. That's according to his publicist.
Robert Redford is one of the last great icons of Hollywood's golden age. An actor, director, and visionary, his career has spanned more than 6 decades, earning him a place not just in film history but in the cultural fabric of America itself. From Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid to All the President's Men and The Sting, Redford became the face of a certain kind of rugged, thoughtful hero, one who carried both charm and gravity in equal measure. Yet like any towering figure, Redford's life has not been without conflict. Behind the glamour of the red carpets, the accolades, and the enduring legacy of the Sundance Film Festival, there are also stories of fractured friendships, quiet rivalries, and lingering bitterness. For all his warmth on screen, not everyone in Hollywood counted themselves among Redford's admirers. One relationship in particular stands out, a falling out so sharp that fans still whisper about it today. An actor who once stood beside Redford in front of the cameras, but who, by all accounts, will not stand by his side in the end. This is not about petty jealousy or passing disagreements. It's about pride, betrayal, and the kind of deep wound that never fully heals. Robert Redford was not born into Hollywood glamour. Born in 1936 in Santa Monica, California, his early life was marked by modest means and personal struggles. As a young man, he drifted through odd jobs, even attending art school in Paris before finally finding his footing in acting. When he arrived in New York City in the late 1950s, it was with ambition but little else. Redford cut his teeth on the stage and in television, appearing in anthology dramas and Broadway productions. His natural charisma and understated style caught the attention of casting directors, and soon he was making his way into feature films. By the mid-1960s, Robert Redford had established himself as one of Hollywood's rising stars, a golden-haired leading man with a hint of depth that set him apart from his contemporaries. It was during these years that Redford crossed paths with another actor whose career was also on the rise. At first, their bond was undeniable. Both were ambitious, handsome, and eager to prove themselves in an industry that thrived on competition. They shared the same circles, often seen together at premieres, industry parties, and even collaborating on early projects. Audiences and critics alike were captivated not only by Redford's performances, but also by the dynamic chemistry he had with this fellow actor. Together, they seemed to represent a new generation of Hollywood stars, men who could carry the weight of serious drama, but also embody the effortless charm of classic leading roles. Behind the scenes, the friendship was genuine. They shared long conversations about the craft of acting, the pressures of fame, and the desire to do more than just entertain. Redford, who would later go on to found the Sundance Institute and become a champion for independent cinema, was already talking about how film could be something deeper, something that reflected truth. His friend admired this ambition, and for a time, it seemed their careers might run parallel, supporting one another on the climb upward. But Hollywood is a place where alliances are fragile, and fame has a way of creating fault lines. The seeds of conflict were sown quietly, almost imperceptibly at first. As Redford's star began to rise faster and higher, the balance between the two men shifted. What had once been a bond of equals slowly turned into a relationship tinged with competition, jealousy, and unspoken resentment. Still, in the public eye, the two actors maintained appearances. They smiled for cameras, spoke fondly of each other in interviews, and even hinted at future collaborations. Fans and journalists alike assumed that this was a friendship that would last a lifetime, but those who knew them privately sensed something else. Little by little, admiration began to harden into rivalry, and what started as healthy competition would eventually explode into something far more bitter, a rupture so deep that even decades later, the wounds remain. For now, though, the world only saw Robert Redford on the rise, a young actor destined to become a legend, and a friend by his side who, in time, would become something very different. By the late 1960s and into the 1970s, Robert Redford had transformed from promising newcomer to full-fledged movie star. His rugged good looks, combined with a natural screen presence, made him one of the most bankable actors of his era. But Redford was more than just a handsome face. He had an uncanny ability to balance charm with complexity, and audiences connected with him on a deeper level. It was during this golden period of his career that he and his friend, the actor with whom he had built such a close bond, shared the screen in a project that would define both of their careers. The chemistry between them was undeniable. Their film became not only a commercial success, but a cultural phenomenon. Critics praised their partnership, audiences adored it, and the studio executives quickly realized they had discovered a duo that could rival the great partnerships of old Hollywood. For a time, everything seemed perfect. The two actors were lauded as Hollywood's golden pair, embodying a kind of effortless camaraderie that transcended the screen. Together, they were the new standard for male leads in cinema, sharp, witty, and endlessly charismatic. Yet behind the curtain, tensions were slowly brewing. Fame has a way of magnifying insecurities. And in this case, one actor's star began to shine just a little brighter than the others. Robert Redford's career skyrocketed after their collaboration. Offers poured in, led roles in major films, opportunities to work with the most respected directors, and later, the chance to step behind the camera himself. His friend, though successful in his own right, found himself increasingly compared to Redford, and often unfavorably. The press played a large role in widening the gap. Magazine profiles would describe Redford as the thinking man's leading man, while his counterpart was cast as his foil, charming, yes, but less thoughtful, less serious. What had once been a relationship of equals was now marked by subtle imbalances. The turning point came when discussions arose about future projects. Redford, ambitious and selective, wanted to pursue roles and directorial opportunities that aligned with his vision of meaningful cinema. His friend, meanwhile, leaned more toward the kind of mainstream success that promised big box office returns. When the two clashed over creative direction, old wounds of competition reopened. What began as small disagreements over scripts and roles soon escalated into something more personal. Interviews from the time reveal carefully chosen words, polite but edged with tension. Each man insisted publicly that they admired the other, but insiders noted that the warmth between them was fading. Redford's growing independence, particularly his founding of the Sundance Institute in 1981, only highlighted the differences between them. Where Redford was building a legacy beyond acting, his friend remained tethered to the studio system, chasing roles that kept him in the public eye. By the time they worked together again, the camaraderie of their first collaboration was gone. On set, the relationship was professional but noticeably cooler. The jokes and easy laughter of their early days had been replaced by a distance that even the cameras couldn't disguise. What had once been celebrated as one of the greatest Hollywood partnerships was now fractured. Fans still loved seeing them together. But those close to the actors knew the friendship was slipping away, and that a more serious break was coming. Fade out with side-by-side images of the two men at the height of fame, smiling for cameras, even as cracks formed beneath the surface. By the time the 1980s arrived, Robert Redford had secured his place as one of the defining figures of American cinema. He wasn't just an actor anymore. He was a director, a producer, and the driving force behind the Sundance Institute, which would reshape independent film forever. His name was synonymous with both box office success and artistic credibility. But as Redford's legacy grew, the gulf between him and his former friend widened into something irreparable. What had begun as subtle rivalry turned into bitterness that neither man could put aside. Their early partnership had made them cultural icons, but the passing years revealed just how differently they saw themselves and each other. The friend-turned-rival reportedly felt overshadowed, believing Redford had taken more than his fair share of the spotlight. In interviews, there were small but unmistakable jabs, suggestions that Redford was aloof, self-righteous, or too controlling when it came to his projects. At first, Redford ignored these comments. But over time, he grew weary of being painted as the one who had betrayed their friendship. Insiders whispered about behind-the-scenes arguments over money, credit, and recognition. One story suggested that during the negotiations for a potential third film together, disagreements over billing order and creative control brought everything crashing down. Neither was willing to bend, and the project dissolved before it even began. What could have been a triumphant reunion became the final wedge that sealed their estrangement. Redford, always careful with his public image, rarely spoke about the feud directly. Instead, he distanced himself. His focus was on building Sundance into a platform for new voices, directing acclaimed films like Ordinary People, and using his fame to promote environmental and political causes. His former friend, however, carried the sting of betrayal more openly, letting bitterness seep into interviews and public appearances. Hollywood, of course, thrives on gossip, and speculation about their falling out became part of both men's stories. Fans longed to see them reconcile, to capture once more the magic of their partnership on screen. But as the years stretched into decades, the silence between them became its own answer. They had reached a point of no return. The tragedy of their estrangement wasn't just personal, it was cultural. Together, they had symbolized an era, representing a particular brand of American masculinity that was witty, rugged, and deeply human. Audiences loved them as a pair, perhaps even more than they loved them individually. To see that bond broken was to lose something larger than either man. By the 1990s, it was clear there would be no reunion, no heartfelt reconciliation, no final bow together. The once close friendship had hardened into mutual disregard, if not outright hostility. And while Redford would continue to collect accolades and honors, his old friend remained conspicuously absent from those celebrations. This absence speaks louder than any words. For all their shared history, for all the laughs and successes of their youth, the bond had fractured beyond repair. And when the time comes for Robert Redford's final farewell, there is one actor fans can be certain will not be there, not out of scheduling conflicts, not out of oversight, but because the wounds left between them never healed, fade out with archival photos of their iconic film together. The smiles of the past contrasted with the silence of the present. As Robert Redford entered the later years of his life, his image as an actor, filmmaker, and activist became cemented as one of Hollywood's most enduring legacies. Unlike many stars of his generation, Redford managed to evolve gracefully with the times, transitioning from leading man to elder statesman of cinema. His founding of the Sundance Institute not only nurtured generations of filmmakers, but also reshaped the industry by giving independent voices a platform they had long been denied. Redford's contributions stretched far beyond the screen. He became a tireless advocate for the environment, political reform, and social justice, using his fame to shine a light on causes close to his heart. Honors poured in, Academy Awards, Golden Globes, Lifetime Achievement recognitions. To the world, he wasn't just a star, he was a visionary. Yet, for all the accolades, there remained one absence that fans could never ignore. The actor with whom Redford once shared a cinematic brotherhood, who had helped create some of the most beloved films of the 20th century, was no longer part of his story. They had gone their separate ways, and time only deepened the silence between them. This estrangement has become almost as legendary as their partnership once was. Fans speculate endlessly about whether the feud was truly about billing and recognition, or whether it was something deeper. Perhaps a clash of egos, values, or even personalities. The truth may never be fully known because both men kept their grievances close, rarely speaking about one another in public. But in Hollywood, silence can be louder than words. As Redford's health declined and talk of his eventual passing began to surface, questions emerged. Would his old friend appear one last time? Not for reconciliation, but out of respect? The answer, whispered in industry circles, is almost certainly no. The bond that was broken so long ago was never mended, and the bitterness that remained was too strong to bridge, even in the face of mortality. This reality adds a layer of poignancy to Redford's story. For all his achievements, his legacy is also marked by this great absence, a reminder that even icons are not immune to the frailties of human relationships. Sometimes, no matter how much the world may want two people to come together, the wounds are simply too deep, and yet the absence itself tells a story. It speaks to the intensity of their bond, the greatness of their partnership, and the pain of its loss. If their friendship had been trivial, its end would not matter so much. But because it was once one of the most celebrated partnerships in Hollywood, its fracture became unforgettable. In the end, Robert Redford will be remembered for far more than this feud. He will be remembered for the films that defined an era, for the institute that transformed cinema, and for the ideals he carried into every stage of his life. But fans will always wonder about the actor who will not stand by his side in the end. Sometimes, the stories we don't see, the funerals not attended, the reconciliations that never happen reveal just as much as the ones we do. And in Robert Redford's case, the absence of one man will forever remain a powerful presence in the story of his life. Music swells, final montage of Redford's career highlights fade to black.